Good morning, everybody. We're being spontaneous this morning, and we're having part two of Charles and Gisela's um, wonderful reflection last week about Jane Genlin's philosophy and the sphere of politics and social interactions and structures. So I'm really excited to see more about what we create together today. It seems to me that Genlin's philosophy completely changes the the face and the guts of social political interactions. And it's such a deep, vast territory that the focusing world has just begun to
Mhm,
venture into in a way.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so uh, we will be part of this venturing this morning. So thank you both, Charles and Gisela, for.
Lynn, you're part of that venturing.
Oh,
I
yes.
consider you, I
Yes,
consider you part of that venture.
yes, I consider me part of it too, with the community empowerment project.
Right, right.
Um, and all of us here in the Help the Helpers project, I think, is part of that venturing because we're creating a community and a structure that um, is evolving and changing, and that um, we're always trying to expand into Jean's philosophy here, having a outer democracy and an inner democracy, as Greg would say. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fellow venturers, here we go.
Um, well, let me say a couple of words, and if Gisela, you want to jump in.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that we kind of just, Gisela and I had a chance to kind of open up the topic last time, and we were just beginning to have people have a chance to express their views, and even I think welcome differences to have a dialogue. And so I hope that this could be a chance for that to be the discussion to be, and for us, for me in particular, I was thinking mostly of listening, but of course, I will always respond to what people say. And I thought of there's a very simple sentence from Gene, which he says, "The bad feeling is the body knowing and pushing toward what good would be." I'll say that again because the bad feeling is the body knowing and pushing toward what good would be. And I think it would be, if we think in terms of that quote, in terms of both the social and political realm of what good would be, and the spiritual realm of what good is, and the personal realm. If we think of that and think of those as three interacting necessary dimensions, we can get a very rich sense of potentiality, potential. And so I'd like to sort of just offer that as a kind of something to ground ourselves in as we continue the discussion. And Gisela, did you want to say something or bring in the from quote?
Yes. Before I start with that, I would like to say that the way we are in this group, it needs to be like a model of what we would like or what we aspire. So when Charles said to me, we need a good culture of dialogue, listening to each other and respecting each other. And when there is controversy, to try to understand what the other one means and then say what we mean and have a healthy self-confidence in whatever we are saying, and having an open space for different views and discuss them and be ready to shift as well. That is what we would want in as far as I can say it. Yeah, so let's be as we would like things to be. And Charles and I thought of the same book independently of each other, which is Erich Fromm, The Art of Loving. And I was thinking about part 3, Love and its Decline in Contemporary Western Society. And then Charles sent me a quote from just that chapter. I couldn't believe it. I would like to read that quote to you. It is quite a bit of lines, maybe 15 lines. Okay? And I read slowly. Let that be as an introduction to the theme of today's meeting. Fromm says, capitalist society is based on the principle of political freedom on one hand, and of the market as the regulator of all economic, hence social relations, on the other. The commodity market determines the conditions under which commodities are exchanged. The labor market regulates the acquisition and sale of labor. Both useful things and useful human energy and skill are transformed into commodities, which are exchanged without the use of force and without fraud under the conditions of the market. Shoes, useful and needed as they may be, have no economic value, meaning exchange value, if there is no demand for them on the market. Human energy and skill are without exchange value if there is no demand for them under existing market conditions. The owner of capital can buy labor and command it to work for the profitable investment of his capital. The owner of labor must sell it to capitalists under the existing market conditions, unless he is to starve. This economic structure is reflected in a hierarchy of values. Now comes an underlined sentence, the last sentence.
Well, I underlined it.
Yeah, Charles underlined it, right. Capital commands labor, amassed things, that which is dead, are of superior value to labor, to human powers, to that which is alive. Again, capital commands labor. Amassed things, that which is dead, are of superior value to labor, to human powers, to that which is alive. Maybe that's a lot to take in, and we might send that to you in print so you can read it again
Good idea.
at some point.
You could put it in the chat, Gisela.
All right. And Charles says, unless we understand this, we can get nowhere. And I agree. We need to understand this. Maybe you're overwhelmed by this, I could imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot.
When I read it, I realized how complex and how much it is.
Mm-hmm.
Could both of you say something about what it means to you for us to, because the quote is your digestion of these ideas.
I want to say that Actually, it's interesting. My mother gave me a copy of The Art of Living when I was 18. And I don't know, but that section of the book uh, made me become a socialist. And there was just that one line about how capitalism values accumulated things over living labor. That was so struck me so profoundly that, of course, I felt like, oh, that's so wrong. What's living is what we should value over accumulated capital. And the idea that capital is what we have is just felt very wrong. And it was profound. It was a life shifting awareness for me. And I don't know how many other people experienced it that way, but I thought, because there are many other things in that book about love and that are very eye opening. But that socially, that kind of was a real eye opener for me.
Mhm.
Stayed with me ever since. And I see in Gene this the high value that he always places on what's living, on life carrying forward, and on the human
Mhm.
being. He never subordinates the human being to some other purpose. Never.
Mhm. I can say where Gene is really a Marxist. I agree with everything Charles said. And Gene is putting experiencing and the body first, instead of our society that puts mind over body. And mind over body also means that people have to go to work and do unpleasant work, which they don't enjoy, which they are alienated from, and force their bodies to comply. I mean, to do what the mind tells. This is one of the main reasons why I am a socialist or Marxist, or how you want to call it. Having to sell my labor power in order to survive, in order to live, is the most inhuman thing for me. Alienation from what I am doing. It takes the joy out of life. It's my take on it at this moment. And has been always, yeah.
Thank you. I'm thinking that I'm hoping that I'll start off with a thought and then other people will contribute their thoughts. But I'm thinking that Jean anticipated the change of going from things to attention as the primary substance of value. And I see that happening, that the young people are being rewarded for a different way of thinking and finding creativity as a very, very valued kind of commodity in startup, organizations and stuff like that. And I'm sure that people will say, yes, but that's all for making a profit, making money. But I think in my lifetime, things have changed so much that that people are paying for a kind of attention in so many ways. Young people without training are doing without formal training are doing meditation groups, and people are giving contributions to that, and so much emphasis on the sphere of attention that wasn't there when I was quite young.
Mhm.
Attention as a kind of being present and listening, right?
Well, being present and listening, thinking your own thoughts, being creative,
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
attending, many ways of attending.
Mhm.
Mhm.
To self and others.
Yes. So I see in this little town where I am, in the Catskills, people who left New York during COVID, or people who are really wanting to be in the country, can find ways of sustaining themselves, not only through farming and things like that used to be, but having a little yoga class, or having many different kinds of classes on Zoom, and that kind of attention, people can live anywhere they want to. So I'm just saying that I thought about genes anticipating this change.
Mhm.
Mhm. The towns that are being created, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's all little things that pave the way toward change.
Mhm.
Yes, they pave the way.
Pave the way.
Mhm.
And
Let's
we
hear from
need to be
others.
alert
Oh.
for these things, no?
Yes,
We need
yes.
to have our antennas up like
Yes,
this.
yes, we need to notice the
Right.
shoots that are coming up, the little green shoots that are coming up,
Yeah.
and support them and further them, and yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And water the seeds.
What are the seeds? That's such an amazing process. I bought some grass for our cat, and it comes as a little piece of earth and seeds. And you put the seeds in, and it's a miracle. The seeds actually become grass.
Of course.
But I know, but it's still a miracle.
It is.
Of course. Miracle of life.
These
And
seeds
it's not
become
a
these,
mechanical process. That Jean always points that out. It's a living process, which is
which is
what we,
always new and creative. And yes, I
yeah.
want to hear from others. I want to hear from others. If you disagree, speak up. If you agree, speak up. If you have something new or different to say, speak up.
Yeah, this is Shashi.
Yes.
Yesterday I was in Charlotte, South Carolina, and I was
Yes.
sitting and eating breakfast in one of these chain places, and a prime truck passed by, a small prime truck passed by, and it says, "In lies your happiness," or "Your happiness is coming at your door." You know, it struck me, the face of capitalism, or our thinking, where it's going. And I say, a young child who doesn't know about it, they would really believe that there's a happiness in this truck coming. When they see this Amazon truck coming, they say, "Oh, I'm going to be so happy." You know,
It's a commodity, right? Something you can buy.
it's, I think the creativity is going in promulgating and promoting those ideas that happiness is in that truck. You know, some young person created that logo for that truck.
That's true.
You know, so it's very powerful. It's all pervasive. This kind of media or whatever you call it.
Yes,
Oh, can I respond to Sashi regarding that?
of course.
Sashi, it's not to contradict what you said, but whenever I see messages like that, I see them as my ancestors sending me like little messages, like happiness is coming your way. So I walk around looking at whatever symbols are out there for me, and I like yesterday I was in Hudson again, and I've said this before. There's an old church there. It's like, I don't know, 200 years old. It's extremely old, and it's looking for money to save it. And we're all happy to save it, and because it's so inclusive. And they have their sign says, we are a constellation, we are interconnected. And every time I pass by it, I just think of that, And the other day I kept on seeing everything's going to be okay, from that song. Everything's going to be okay. So then I saw it somewhere, and I kind of saw it and I said, okay. But then I went into a store just in case I didn't believe it was a message from my ancestors. I go into a store, and there's a whole entire painting somebody made, and it says everything is going to be okay in Home Goods, right? And just when I didn't have enough, the song that comes is everything's gonna be okay.
We get Bob Marley here.
Yeah, and I'm like, so even our dreams guide us, but then when we go out of our dreams into waking life, there are messages that are sent to us. So not to say that the truck wasn't capitalist or anything, but if I would have seen it, I probably would have said, oh, they're speaking to me,
It's nice to take it that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you're not falling for the manipulation of the ad, but you have your own take on it that gives you strength and hope and lifts you up.
Thank you, Gisela. Yes.
So I have a couple of things I want to share here, but not to take this off in the wrong direction. My mom was in the anti-war movement. My grandfather was naval officer, ended up retiring as an admiral. My parents went into the anti-war movement. And then now my mom is saying a lot of the problems we have is because there isn't a draft. And her point being not about war, but about the lack of service, the lack of the idea of service. And that people are more self-serving, and there's an entitlement that I'm supposed to be happy. This world is supposed to serve me, as opposed to giving of oneself. So it's not about the draft, it's not about the military, but it's about the sense of giving back. And then secondarily, my daughter, both my daughters went to George School, which is a Quaker school, and they both went to Nicaragua on a service project. And one of them, they both ended up staying with families, similar families, but my daughter stayed in a one room with 10 people. She was living with 10 people in one room. And every night she'd go outside and they'd play with a little ball. She brought them balls and they'd go outside and play with the balls. And she said, Mom, I never had so much fun in my life as playing with those kids. And she came home and I used to buy them gifts. I was like, we used to give them gifts and things. We don't want gifts anymore. Both of them separately said, we don't want gifts. We want experiences. And also, so they're both really into service. But I'm just saying that it's just adding to the conversation, the things that came up for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. I see it as giving from the heart, that we're not like a spontaneous, joyful giving, where we are enjoying meeting each other's needs and making life, celebrating life and making it more joyful. So that sounds perfect. I love the idea of service. That's not, as long as it's not slave labor.
Yeah.
And as long as it's not military service for the purpose of war.
Yes. I was only giving that as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why without the draft, there's an economic draft to the poor, which is and so it means that those who are rich end up not, and it's that I'm with your mom on that in some way. Yeah.
I thought of Stephen Levine's idea that giving and receiving are the same thing. That
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
about service, I'm the bountiful one and I'm
Giving to you.
you, the poor one. But it's about the experience of giving and receiving and learning and teaching and being with that's joyful.
Yeah, joyful
Mhm.
mutuality.
Yeah.
Can I say something? That's Lindsay here.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
of course.
After last week, thinking on what had come up last week that was being talked about, it was kind of as soon as it was over, I thought, oh, that's what I wanted to say. So, and in noticing the distinction made between labour and kind of what the goods that are produced, where I have questions about is how that model then can go forward with recognising that sometimes people are the goods. I mean, I'm in Scotland, and the adoption law here is in property. So there's kind of abuses of human rights of adopted people by them being subservient to the law of property throughout their entire lives. That it was written from the point of view of the adults who are adopting.
Mhm.
And there's been a societal blind spot in recognising what effect that then has on subsequent generations of people who have been adopted.
Mm.
And it's through focusing that I've unearthed the kind of origins of my being, which my adoption has cut me from the lineage of my ancestors and imposed an oppression on me and subsequent generations, which is very hard for people to listen to because of the saviour mentality of people thinking they're doing a good thing by adopting children from another family. So it's not about caring for people. It's not about taking in people who need taken in. It's about the way that society does it, like the way in which they do it, which actually abuses the children's rights.
It's like from that, everything is treated as a commodity. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. And because money changes hands. And the flow of children is always from the poorer and the less empowered to the people who are more empowered. And it's a hugely growing problem because fertility rates are falling. So the trade in lives isn't abating. And even pre-lives, I know in America there is an actual adoption rights movement, and it is tied in with the assisted reproduction technology movements, because the people that are born from the try and demand access to their ancestry. You know, if they're born through sperm donation. That if you're deeply in touch with your process, you're deeply in touch with your ancestors. But if your ancestors are completely unknown to you, the wound it creates in your psyche results for a lot of people in having very serious mental health diagnosis. And actually, the only diagnosis they need is adoption trauma. Anything else is a misdiagnosis often.
And can I say something? In Lindsay, hi, I'm Lenore. In the United States, and I don't want to get off track from where we were completely, but it's the same thing. In private adoption, here in the United States, you have to have a lot of money to adopt a child. But the one good thing, I have an adopted child. And the wonderful thing is he found through Ancestry his biological sister and his family, and she came to the wedding. And, you know, there's a lot of openness about that today, which is a wonderful thing. So, because she was looking for him for 20 years, and then they happened to be online at the same time through Ancestry and found each other, which was amazing. But I wanted to get back also to something that really incensed me once. I almost fell off the chair. I was watching a television commercial about, I think it was Pete Seeger singing "This Land Is My Land, This Land Is Your Land," and I loved Pete Seeger as a child. He was a performer, a singer in the United States who was very much into human rights and very much active in the Socialistic Communistic Party, probably back in the 30s. And they were using his song for an ad for selling a car or something. And I said,
Oh,
They use women's poetry for that too.
I could not believe my eyes or my ears. I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, everything becomes a commodity.
Yeah, that was the epitome of it for me.
mhm.
Welcome to the USA. That's what
Yeah, welcome to the USA.
Born
The
in the
trick,
USA.
the trick always is to catch something of our emotions, something that we would be deeply touched by, and then turn it around to a purpose, for a purpose, I mean. Yeah. So whenever we are deeply touched by anything that comes from advertisement or propaganda, pause, stop. What's happening here?
Yeah. And it it just took away from who this person was, who, you know, it took away from everything that he stood for. It just washed it out.
Yeah.
And that's what capitalism does, right? It washes it out.
Yeah. And that song is a Woody Guthrie song, and he was a very leftist.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm taking a risk asking this because for many of you, you'll think it's so obvious. And for some of you, you'll think it's subversive. But I'm wondering what we mean by capitalism when we say it's because of capitalism or capitalism does that. Are we talking about the ideas that money is the highest priority and commodities, and are we talking about structures, or are we talking about the government, our governments okaying it for people to sell anything they want in any way they want? Or, you know, I'm just wondering how we use that word. I always feel confused, you know, or also when we say, well, it's the system, you know, it's not these bad people, but it's the system. And then I wonder, well, what is the system? Because we are the system is us. What system? There's systems within systems. So I don't know. I'm just wondering how we here are using what we really mean by the word capitalism.
For me, the simplest way of answering that is that phrase that we say here, this is the bottom line. Well, what exactly is the bottom line? Usually it means, are we making a profit? But maybe the bottom line ought to be human needs. So what happens if we go on, Lynn?
I'm just, but everybody's bottom line is a different bottom line, maybe. And I mean, I think that's where focusing comes in, that if you say, what's your bottom line in a corporation, people will say something. But then if you say, well, feel into that, what is your bottom line?
What is your bottom line?
Right, or
The bottom line for
that
you.
you want, right,
Yeah.
the bottom line that you want us to have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That's what focusing leads us to ask.
right.
Mhm.
I want to give it, as somebody wants
Hey.
to speak. Dana wants to speak, but you want to speak too, Gisela?
Thank you. I feel like there's part of the sharing here that wasn't addressed, and I'm kind of noticing the movement of the conversation forward, and another part that I really would like to give some acknowledgement to of Lindsay's sharing, which felt very, very tender to me. And I would like to hold it in community, because it touches me, and I think it touches the question of commodity. And I hadn't thought about it that way. This very real exchange of people. Because now that's making me think of trafficking and other kind of exchanges of people that we think of as very shadowy and disempowering. And so I just wanted to give that an acknowledgement, and to thank you for bringing that here. It's such, I just want to hold it with tenderness.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about the ancestors, and Anasi is coming into, this conversation with ancestors. And I'm kind of curious what you think about, Earth Mother, ultimately as holding us, and kin, non-human kin. And my body wants that healing that I think the opening quote invited. What is feeling wrong and what is the healing? So I just want to, I don't know if Lindsay or Anasi want to say something in response, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. When I saw your hand going up, I hoped you were going to address something I'd been trying to bring to this space, because it feels that there's something missing when it's not addressed. It's that very phrase that was used in the chat about indoctrination into a fantasy. Is something that I speak about in regards to Father Christmas, as a good metaphor for it is great to believe in Father Christmas when you're a young child, and it's okay to be disillusioned as you grow older, and discover that it was a story that was told. And for an adopted person, when they grow older, it can be in their teens, or it can be when they become a parent, or it can be when their parents die, that they discover that what they had previously believed about what the words mother and father meant, and what it meant to have a family, was actually a little bit of a fantasy element in there, because it wasn't acknowledging the multiple streams of family. And I do notice in this group, and I spoke to some friends this week, that the one person who has said where they're from in their caption, I can't see it at the moment, is, I'll put on gallery view, is Katerina. She has said Vancouver into where she's from. I'm in my late 50s, and I discovered 2 months ago that my birth father, his wife, and my half sister, who's my only sibling by blood, lives in Vancouver. So it's been quite meaningful for me to see that I am in contact with somebody who lives in that part of the world.
These connections are so important. Yeah. There's such deep tenderness here. Thanks, Dana. Stephanie. Wonderful we can go to these steps. But this is a place where it feels safe enough. Yeah. Thank you.
I think there is a notion of service here, that my service is to point out something that's wrong, that people need, that we would be better as people if we were talking about this and looking at it. Yeah.
How do you mean that? I'm not sure I understand.
I mean that there needs to be room for all the voices. At the moment, the voice of the adoptees is being completely shut down and ghettoized. And it's only the voice of the birth parents or the adopted parents that are getting to speak. So it's not that I don't want dialogue with everybody, but to try and make space for the voice of the adoptee is a real uphill struggle, because people don't want to hear. I mean, I heard something recently. Korean adoptees have got quite a lot of academic things going on, and they've been talking about how scary it is for people to realise how fragile families are. And it's so they don't want to listen to the adoptee voice, because they would need to look at their own family and think that's probably as fragile as, that families are considered to be this unit block of society on which everything else is built. And for a family to be part of the capitalist thing where children can be purchased, which breaks the family that they're being purchased from, is totally mind-blowing. And yet it happens every day. And we brush under the carpet how the damaging side of that equation.
Yes.
I notice we only need to point out that something is wrong in society, then all these things come up. And I'm just thinking that also slavery still happening.
Human trafficking.
Sex slavery is happening. All that, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to say, Lindsay, thank you so much, because it builds awareness. And when we have awareness, it changes the way we move through life. And so thank you. I hadn't thought of this before, and I'm just grateful for this awareness. And I hope that changes the way I move through life and others as well. So thank you.
And I know adopted parents can be great allies to adoptees. And I know this is a personal detail, but I was raised in the Church of Scotland. And 5 weeks ago, when I discovered more information about my birth father, I learned that his whole family are Jewish, which just me already having becoming involved in this kind of situation, it's just like there are things which one would think are cultural, and it turns out they're in the bones. They're in the blood. You would not expect the things to pan out the way they do, the synchronicities that happen for most adoptees if they do go on an adoption journey. Well, it does make you question your very ground, which is why focusing is something which is constantly moving and reaching into the unknown is a very stabilizing thing for an adopted person to do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just thinking about what Jean says about it's not what we're saying, but it's the doing in the saying. And it's not that we are saying we want more democratic, more inclusive communal life, but in coming back, to the personal, where we're doing that. We're saying, oh, this personal story, this personal passion, this personal insight is very, very important. And let's really listen and see what we gain from it for our collective.
Yes. Yes.
This brings me to, I think, the opening quotes that were in the email invitation to this session today.
Yes.
Of what can we do as a community that this is what came to me. What can we do as a community that we can't necessarily do as an individual?
Yes.
And the faith community to which I kind of belong, I guess that's one way. Yeah, I feel belonging there. We spoke this weekend about mycelial networks, these underground networks of fungi that connect and as kind of a way of doing community. And I'm just, this invitation is coming to me of how does this personal story, what does it light up in all of us? And how does it invite us to make community here? So I'm just kind of maybe inviting everybody to maybe share something of what it brings up.
Mhm.
I think we're pausing here with how do we carry this conversation forward? It's almost 10 after 9, and we
Yes.
thought about having our breakout rooms where people can share more intimately, but we are a smaller group this morning. What is there for us, and how do we make that decision as a group? Because
Mhm.
the presenters make the decision. What does the decision emerge? Has it emerged? Would that be a question for the breakout rooms? Is how has this whole discussion, not only the personal story, but the whole impacted us, or lit things up for us? What's there for us now?
And one theme is how are we connected in the community, even people who sometimes don't have a voice? And how do we include everyone? Do we really truly create a community?
Mhm.
Yeah, let's go into groups. Let's go into breakout groups. It'll be interesting to see what comes up.
Wait a moment. Something has
Yes.
been in me since the last 5 minutes. Dana, first of all, your question, what can we do as a community that we cannot do individually, I think is a very good question for this group, because that is what it's pointing toward. And I also think about you, Lindsay. I wonder, as a question for you, you might consider it or throw it away, whatever you would like to do with it. How would that situation with the adopted children be in a society where there is a real community right where you are, where you live, all around? And how would you be feeling more embedded maybe in a community than in our society that is focused so much on the individual and individualizing everything, while it is in reality, it is not at all individuals. Yeah. Our society where people are left, thrown back onto themselves alone. Yeah. So a community, a communal society, a collaborative society would be different. I know we do not have it, but I just wanted to add that as a perspective. Because the problem of adopted child would be different then, despite the commodification. Yeah. No, not despite. It would be different, and of course not treated as a commodity. But the community that holds us as a place where we belong is something that is deeply needed in all of us, and society doesn't provide that. That makes it worse for any person who does not have the connection to their ancestry anymore. I hope I express this clearly, because it's coming just at this moment.
Feels like
That
that's
could be,
the connecting point there.
I think it could be a interesting point for the groups to think about how it would transform things, so that I don't think we stop being individuals, but we're individuals in community is different from being an isolated individual. An individual community, get the individuality is supported and nurtured by the community, and we give back from our individuality to the community what only we, as a unique person that each of us is, can give. Each one of us has only that one thing that we are to give. Now, I want to go into groups, but I also want to, maybe Pauline might want to speak first before we go into groups.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Gisela.
Yes.
Yeah, I just really prompted by Gisela's last comment, just around, and I'm not sure that I took it in fully to reflect it, but it did spark something of my feeling that as a focusing identity, or those that are in community as folk, it's that maybe we're not individuals at all, but that we have access to that bigger sense of ourselves. And it's from there, it's the intention. I think you mentioned intention earlier on, Lynn, in relation to Jean. It's the intention to come from that place to build structures, so that we don't need a cause, we don't need an identity. It's surrendering that sense of separation, and instead of needing to kind of work so hard, it's like just holding the space for ourselves as individual. I think that's radical. And from there to bring forward some of those healing properties. I was really struck by reading an account of something in Ukraine, whoever, so there was killings, rapes, child abuse, and that was individual to individual. it didn't matter whether there were Russian soldiers, or it was that sense of being alienated from their individuality, that they could do that, So it's kind of like I'd certainly have a passion for creating towns and villages or networks, even in our identity, that we have access to resources that are deeply healing and effective, immediately effective, that we're not alone. So really feeling you mentioned tenderness, Charles, is like access to that tenderness now, I'm prompted by, I can't remember Lindsay's thing, to Vancouver, outside Katharina's window, my son is, I'm in Ireland, I can see him out there because she's in Vancouver, and it's that longing, but in reality is coming back to myself and connecting with him from that deeper sense of that we have access to in focusing. So feeling that love.
It's so lovely, Polly.
Thank you.
I sometimes look up at the moon and say, that moon, it's the same moon we all see.
Yes.
In every part of the
Absolutely.
world, or the sun.
Sure. Yeah.
The same sun, the same moon.
Yeah. And it's light years away from us, and yet it's so accessible or visible.
Yeah, it's so part of the beauty of the world we live in. Yeah.
Feel deeply grateful. Thank you.
I
Nessie,
don't
you
think
wanna
we have
speak?
the answer yet.
No.
How do we become a we?
Uh,
The we are meant to be as human beings, while retaining our individuality, of course.
we don't fully have the answer. We don't fully have the answer. We partly have the answer. We have part of the way, don't you? We do know something, but there's a long way to go, right?
Sure, we know something because we are human beings.
Yeah.
We are meant to be a we. And we cannot survive alone in any case.
Yeah.
You might say, we are a we.
We are a we. We can't avoid. We can't not be a we. And Nessie wants to speak, I think.
Yeah, I just want to say, I really want to thank Dana for bringing us back to Lindsay, because when Lindsay was speaking, I really needed to pause in my heart. Like everything Lindsay was saying resonated at different levels. And I'll be brief. The first level is that I'm an adoptee. I was adopted as a baby, and I adore my adopted parents, but I reconnected with my biological parents as an adult when my adoptive parents passed away. And then I lost my biological parents one after another. They were in their 90s, though. They were ill, but COVID just took over. So my biological father died on my birthday, and my mom died a month later. And but then, throughout my young adulthood, I was a director of a program that was for foster children and children that were up for adoption, which is just brought me back to that time, because many times I saw, Black and brown children being processed through foster care and adoptions. And it was very painful because my area was primarily sexual abuse and sexual trauma. So I worked with children that were 3 to 10. And also I was working in a system that held the children, but I didn't feel children should be in residential moving, I just didn't feel they should be without a family. So my organization and I worked really hard to create therapeutic foster homes for younger babies, for little ones that were trained. The parents were trained, they got paid more money. You see the problem, and you're working in, I was working in the place I felt was the problem, which is interesting. So then it's like, how do I find a solution for the job that I'm going to financially end? Because I just didn't believe children should have residential care, even though I worked there. So I created the most compassionate, loving, therapeutic community that I could, and then worked real hard to dismantle the thing I worked in. I don't know if that makes sense, but, and lastly, Gisela asked about community, and she said 2 things that stayed with me. Doing doing ancestor work, when you're an adoptee, you start thinking, so who do I pray to? The adopted ones or the ones that are blood, you know? Or if you are an adoptee that does not know who the adoptive parents are, and what I've learned through ancestor work is that ancestor work is energetic. It is in our blood, it's in our energy, it's in the earth. You know, you don't really need to know unless you want to do ancestry DNA and find out, but they're there in you and you can connect with them through dreams, through prayer. And regarding how do we create community, I feel that this is a community that does two things for me. Whatever I learn here, I take to my community, but then it does something to the community within me. I have an inner community. And what I learn here stays in me. It breeds in a way that creates a different me. And that me shares the me that I'm learning here. That makes sense.
Oh.
Yes,
That's all
yes,
I'm going to say.
yes.
Thank you, Inessie. I'm
Yes.
having a kind of bodily anxiety, jitteriness, or something like. I feel we're poised here as a community, and I'm not sure how to read us. Are we going to go into breakout rooms? Do we need to do that?
Maybe we should have a vote. Do people want to go into breakout room?
And what does the vote do? Also, I mean, that's such a big question.
Right.
By the majority, or
Right.
or what? It feels like this moment where our saying, you know, or doing are trying to come together, but we're poised on the brink here. How do we move forward? We
Because
have
we're in such a vital discussion here, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
20 after 9.
Right,
And we would have 10 minutes if we go
right.
into our rooms, and then sharing, or maybe 15 minutes. I'm just wondering if anybody else is feeling that
Yeah.
feeling of how
Yeah.
do we get the felt. This is one of the things that has
Yeah.
such a passion for me. How do we get the felt sense of the group, not just the felt sense of me as an isolated person, but how the group is living in me and will be living in each of us differently.
Jim wants to say something.
I would like to go to a breakout room, but it might be too late. I've been feeling a lot of conflict in this group. And it's making me feel more like an individual. I have a feeling that there's a wish to be part of a group, and the wish undercuts people's individuality in a way, but it's kind of irritating my individuality, and now I feel irritable. And I was hoping for a breakout group so that I could recover from it. And I'm afraid that I won't recover now.
That sounds like a pretty strong vote for a group breakout. Dana, do you want to say? Let's take that in, Jim, and hold it. And it sounds important. There may be others who feel similarly. Dana, did you want to say something? Can I go to Dana, Jim?
Can't stop you.
Oh, I'm asking.
Every minute that we do this, then somebody else will raise their hand and we won't do it. I understand that I'm just an individual who's feeling irritated, and my irritation should not run the group because I'm not a dictator.
So Dana took down her hand.
I want to thank Jim for naming that.
Is that what you wanted to do?
No, but as Jim was speaking, I just want to acknowledge, and I feel like there's a resonant we coming forth, and I want to make space for that, and for that to hold Jim and others
Mhm.
I wanna
I say, I would vote for, let's do a 10-minute breakout.
Okay, let's do it. And I want to
Yeah.
remind us that we do have time for sharing. We'll have another 10 minutes for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see you at 9:35. Hi, Charles.
Hello.
Yeah.
We had a nice little breakout.
Yeah. Good.
That is even an interesting word, right?
Right, to break out. Yeah. I was thinking of that. Breaking loose, breaking out.
Yes. Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, look, there's Katerina in person. Hi.
Yes, yes.
We're having community in our window now.
Oh, I noticed. Look at that.
That's right.
It's amazing what happens in breakout rooms.
We crossed the space-time barrier.
Yeah. We were talking about that, and two of us, right, Stephanie, about time and how we manage time, whether we're in together or in small groups, and the whole issue of time and space. Mm.
Oh, I'm very interested to see what people have to share and how being in a breakout room changes things. Jim,
I also want to have 5 minutes for the poem, for people to write a poem.
I don't think we can, Charles.
Okay.
Maybe some people could.
Well, I'll just write mine in the chat. Okay, go on. Okay, go on.
The tyranny of the clock. The worst.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yes.
You know that in the Paris Commune, all the workers smashed the clocks.
Really?
Yes, they smashed the clocks.
So Jim, I'm curious about how the breakout room might have changed things for you. And
Well, how it changed it personally is I feel overwhelmed by a large group. I can't talk in large groups, and the larger, the more difficult. And I think that groups have a tyranny to them. I mean, we might want to say that the Soviet Union is a bad example of communism, but there's something about a group norm and a group tyranny where it can be a dictatorship. Well, you can say it's the dictatorship of the proletariat, but a dictatorship is a dictatorship. So I always feel better talking in small groups.
What about this group felt like a dictatorship?
That's a focusing question, and we don't have enough time for me to get the felt sense and go into it. It's not just this group; it's lots of groups.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I went to a DSA meeting recently, and there was, and there was a tyranny there too. But it's personal to me.
All right.
It's
Jim-
the felt sense. Yeah.
Jim, I really valued your expression of the irritation. It really prompted my own sense of, well, how do we talk as a group or into a group, so I really valued that. And we talked about you in our group. So hope you felt the love going back.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Eric Fromm's other book, Escape from Freedom.
Mhm.
How people will do all sorts of things not to be free. That they want
Yes.
the tyranny of the group. They want to feel part of a group so they don't have to deal with their own individuality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that you might have been feeling irritated at the group not going in the direction that felt like the direction of the group, and And then in your speaking, Jim, you were expressing that strand that maybe wasn't being spoken. And then there was the change of saying, okay, let's just do it. Let's do the breakout groups. And it was a wonderful example for me of the idea that we can't change the other person, but we can change the dynamic. So that when you express that, then that became the action.
But I didn't want to be that person. That's why I'm in a leadership group, so I can learn to want to be that person.
Yes. But maybe you were the only person that could.
You did it. You did it, Jim. You were that person in that action. And
Is it feel right to say that something in you doesn't, or is it all of you?
Again, that might take me too long to find out.
I'm only raising it. No,
It's safe.
I'm expecting you.
We know the theory, so it's safe to say something.
Okay.
The practice, I have to experience it, and we don't have time.
That's right. That's right. And I'm not putting it as I'm posing it as a something, to not as a requiring an answer. Yeah. As something to reflect on.
Does it feel right to have, we have about 4 more minutes to have Gisela and Charles' poems? I want to remind us that we're having a whole month of writing, and the poems may inspire you, us to
Yeah,
write.
maybe after the group, people can, and maybe who could they send it to that we might then gather? I don't know. Who would it be a good?
Yeah, they can send it to Christine. They can send it to me, and Christine will get it.
Okay.
Lynn, maybe it can be part of initiating an anthology from the writing, that we could hold that and publish it at the end of the writing month.
Yes, that's another possibility.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can read my poem. It's short.
Go ahead.
We will know it when we're there. Wrongness shows the way. As we seek solutions to our wretchedness, the body shall be our guide. It is our resource, our source, our friend, and yes, our hope. And we shall meet there. You want to read yours, Gisela?
Trying to find it.
Okay.
Dana has her hand up.
Oh, Dana.
Charles, you could put yours in the chat. And
I did already.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Well,
Sophie has her hand up.
I just want to add one thing is that I mentioned to Charlie in the breakout room is the piece around that we are all interconnected, and that there is a community, a network underneath us that is working in community and interconnected. The trees, the fungus, the mushrooms. Just want to add this. We're not isolated as a human race, as the human animal race. There are many other
Animals, plants, beings. Yes. Dana, very quickly.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah, I just want to say that the way we say matters. And as community, I feel the energies of everyone. And I felt the wounding from Jim. I think, when Lynn asked it in the question, I feel conflict and how to go from there. It was easier for me to take in, like, as a question. And it's a resource place that is able to ask it in that way. So I'm just taking that for myself. Thank you.
A resource place. Yeah. Gisela?
I found my poem, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really connect to what was said in the last couple minutes.
Okay.
But
so it
I
doesn't-
feel to
Go ahead. Say what you
I
need to
feel
say.
to read it anyway.
Yes.
I am the devil's advocate here now. Want to be. I am not dreaming into the blue, but find out what is wrong and understand why. And for the benefit of who? Only then can I know what is really wrong and how things could be in a way that suits me and all of us. That is my credo. And I do not fit in. I have my own views. And even if no one understands, this is who I am and what I stand for.
I think it fits in quite well.
I do too. Yes.
I would love to see it in writing, Gisela, if you can share it with us.
I put it in the chat.
It's really quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's in the chat. Okay.
I think we should have a part 3 of this.
And 4 and 5 and 6.
The 11th of September was one of the dates, as far as I remember.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was that for, the 11th of September?
Part 2. I mean,
Oh.
what happened today?
Part
Oh,
is-
9/11. Sounds great.
Yeah, 9/11. A very funny
Evocative
date.
date.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll figure that out. I want to thank you all. And this would be a wonderful discussion to watch the video of and see what led to what the movement of the group.
Yeah, it was a very interesting
We'll
process.
have a strange juxtaposition in a way, because next week I'll be starting off the writing with contemplative writing and John O'Donohue's idea of blessing, writing blessing. So
Okay.
we'll write protests and we'll write blessings.
Yeah. Every blessing is a protest.
Yes.
And every protest is a blessing.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
Dialectics right here.
Yeah, that's it. Dialectics right here.
That's beautiful. Okay, see you next week, everybody.
All right.